Mobility is a fact of life. Think about it. You moved from where you were to where you are now to watch this show.
And in the course of the day and your week, you will move from your home to work, or to school, or visit family and friends.
Or even attend parties over the weekend.
A Lagos classic style. You are one of well over 100 million Nigerians doing this every day. So you can imagine the amount of transportation used and roads traveled, and the need for those roads to be good and transport functional.
Which is what we're talking about on the show today. National transport policy and the need to make travel easy and a delight for you. I am Kate Harmony.
I am Obafemi Craig. We start off now with a news update. This is the news update on Lamata FR. The Lagos State Government, through the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority Lamata, is promoting the use of bicycles in Lagos as an alternative means of public transport for commuting and social trips. It's soon to mount a campaign to create awareness for the use of bicycles as transport means, as well as health gains of cycling as an exercise mode. As part of the move to promote bicycling, the state government incorporated bicycle lanes in the rehabilitation and expansion of Vemco Road, Ogba, in a dual carriageway. Medical practitioners have maintained that cycling is one of the easiest ways to exercise, as it builds strength and muscle tone, builds stamina, improves cardiovascular fitness, improves heart health, and reduces stress, among other benefits. The faithful implementation of the State Strategic Transport Master Plan, STMP, will solve the challenges faced by commuters while moving from one part of the state to the other. The STMP, which detailed the transport infrastructure required to cater for the transport needs of Lagosians till the year 2032, has 6 rail lines, 1 monorail, and 16 bus rapid transit corridors. There are also 26 water routes, 3 cable cars, and other key road projects, including a ring road around Lagos. One of the BRT projects, the Mile 12 to Marina, is operational, while the second, extension of the BRT from Mile 12 to Ikorodu, is under construction. According to a statement, Lamata explained that the state government is committed to completing all the projects to serve the needs of the populace. It appealed for the understanding, support, and cooperation from members of the public by following road diversions and reducing speed within construction areas. That was the news update.
Basically, what Lamata does is to coordinate public transportation in Lagos State, and we came up with a transport master plan.
Developed together with the World Bank, the objective of this plan is finding long-lasting solutions for the problem of transportation in Lagos. Currently under its first steps of development, the plan has already proven itself a big success, dramatically increasing the connectivity in a city in continuous expansion and enjoying an unparalleled demographic and economic growth.
Our responsibility is to ensure that we provide the necessary infrastructure to meet the growth, to improve the quality of life, to improve the standard of living, and to make Lagos a vibrant and livable city in years to come.
Lamata, think transport.
You're welcome back. Today we are looking at the intent of the National Transport Policy vis-à-vis government's plan to make travel possible, smooth, and safe for Nigerians. But before we go into that, let's watch this mini feature. Transport plays an important role in the economic and social development of any nation. Nigeria had, at different times, come up with a national transport policy. For instance, the introduction to the National Transport Policy document in 1993 states that, at present, the Nigerian transport system functions in a crisis situation. One of the principal causes was a major imbalance between the needs of the Nigerian society and economic for adequate transport facilities and the ability of transport sector to meet such demands. The responsibility for planning, developing, and maintaining the nation's transport infrastructure is shared among the 3 tiers of government. To this end, interstate roads are the responsibility of state governments, while the local governments are required to cater for intra-urban and rural feeder roads, which accounts for over 60% of the existing road network. The federal government is responsible for the national highways, which constitute only 17% of the existing road network. In view of the inability of the federal government to provide adequate direction in driving the national transport policy, a number of state governments have come up with different measures to ensure the mobility of its people. In Lagos State, for instance, the government established the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, LAMATA, to plan, implement, regulate, and franchise public transport. In carrying out its mandate, LAMATA has implemented the first bus rapid transit system from Mile 12 to CMS, which is being extended to Ikorodu. It is building a light rail system from Okokomaiko to Marina. The rail line would move more than 400,000 commuters daily. LAMATA has also come up with a strategic transport master plan which details the state's transport infrastructure requirement up to the year 2032. It is clear from the plan made by the Lagos State government to ensure the mobility of its people that it is light years ahead of other governments in the Federation.
Lagos, my home. With LAMATA, Lagos is changing for the best.
The national transport policy is quite an ambitious one, but does it meet Nigeria's transport needs? Well, we'll get to find out in the course of our discussion today with the National Executive Director, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, Francis Ehigwese. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kate.
Mr. Ehigwese, transport is key to the development of any nation, and we need, at the point in time, a national transport policy. Where should the focus of a transport policy be?
Thank you. Our policy remains a statement of intention towards actions to be taken, either by state, organization, or even by the international community. It is intended to achieve a definite purpose for a nation. As regards the national transport policy, the main focus should actually be, 1, to ensure that there is safe, adequate, affordable, secured and reliable, dependable transport system for the nation. The focus of a national transport policy should be such that every Nigerian will be satisfied and feel safe at the time of its use. If a transport system is not so dependable and reliable, then it's not what it sought. It means the state and those that decide to craft the national transport policy need to go back to the drawing table. In Nigeria today, the national transport policy still remains a draft, and it's still subject to a number of abuses. And I also want to say, government, either at federal and state level, they make do with administrative pronouncement because the national transport policy that is approved is not in place. So, but having said that, I want to conclude that the national transport policy must, at all times, meet the need, mobility need of the people.
Okay, the national transport policy is yet to be endorsed.
Yeah.
But we need to have a summary of what it entails.
Yeah, for now, like I said, the national transport policy remains a draft.
Yeah.
Though it looks like a shame that after 52 years that we are still talking about a draft of a national transport policy. I'm aware that in 1993, the first draft came out
Yes.
during General Babangida's regime. And it was looked as too scientific. Some described it as too cosmetic. Some said that it was too technical for them to understand, and they wanted it watered down. So it was referred again for a review. Of course, that review has remained, of course, unending as of today. So, but having said that, the summary of the national transport policy, from what, of course, I've seen, I've looked at it over and over again, it started from, of course, introduction. That introduction actually crafted what the national transport policy should be looking at in terms of its economic contribution to national development,
Exactly.
in terms of linkage and support of people and goods and service to move, in terms of investment, in terms of our competitiveness as a nation with other nations, you know, in terms of looking at it from the perspective of each mode of transport. And what it had done over time is, though, like I said, it still remains a draft.
A draft.
You'll find that some of the provisions in it have been used by each of these modes. Is it rail? Is it air? Well, the kind of transport system we have, policy we have today, take note that the aviation mode of the transport system, its representation in that policy is a bit weak. But road, rail, and maritime, including pipeline, remains strong. Though pipeline seems to be, taking in the chapter that deals with, cross issues,
Okay.
but it was still well captured in national transport policy. So I want to say that, in essence, it has captured what the road should be, but I want to also say that today, road transportation has remained a mode that is unorganized, not sanitized, and there is no policy direction that is actually looking at that mode of transport, which is the most popular mode that we use. Like I kept on saying that Nigeria seems to be tilting towards unimodal transportation.
Yeah.
And that has to do with what? Road.
And is the government in any way implementing any aspect of even this draft policy as it is?
I want to begin this way. Any nation without a transport policy will remain rudderless. It means that anything goes. The rules, the regulations will not be there to follow. So anybody can do anything and go away scot-free. So that is as critical as that. And I want to say also, if you look at in Nigeria, why are we unimodal? In Nigeria, why is investment lopsided? Why are there imbalances across all the modes of transportation? Why? Because there is no an approved policy in place to say, okay, these are the boundaries with which we are going to, of course, work. These are the boundaries you cannot go outside. And today, I tell you, many operate outside the box because there is no national transport policy. I also want to say, yes, each mode of transportation in line with their institutions. I want to say now, let's talk about the maritime industry. In particular, the port. The port, the concept to concession the port started about 2003 by the administration of Obasanjo. And by 2006, it was consummated. And it was nothing as an administrative what? Pronouncement. And it became what? A policy. But I want to say that, yes, even at that, it has worked. It has remained the best policy that has worked for Nigeria. Because today, infrastructure at the port, operational efficiency at its peak is better. Today, you get to the port, Those days you have wharf raft. I don't know if you know what's called wharf raft now, where people steal
Of course.
You know, it's no longer, go to Grimadi, you can no longer find that. Go to Ep5 terminal, you can no longer find that because of private sector participation. Again, I want to quickly say that the national transport policy that does not think of the private sector as a critical partner is dead on arrival.
So, cascading it down to the state government, how would the policy assist the state government in fashioning out its transport policy?
That has been a very major issue. A session in one of the strategies did look at it from the point of the federal and state, including local government, collaborating to come up with a national transport policy. That aspect talked about the encouragement, but I think we should move beyond encouragement to make sure that we say it is compulsory, not just to encourage, that it is mandatory for the state, for the federal and the local government to actually come together to craft a national transport policy. Be that as it may, the current national transport policy, yes, the state can also derive its own transport policy. But I want to say that the national transport policy as it were for now has not been able to take, like I said, the critical stakeholders along so that the transport will be able to play its own strategic role in our national economy. Lagos State seems to be the only state, the Niger State, that is coming up with its own state transport policy. The state must not make the same mistake we have at the national level. It is now the state must understand how to select or identify the critical stakeholder in terms of human capacity, in terms of institution, and come up with a state policy that is embraced by all.
Looking into the future, how many years from now do you think we can get it right in passenger transport infrastructure provision?
That is a very tall question.
But we need the answer.
Yeah, I will answer this question this way. I have traveled to no less than 49 countries of the world. And Nigeria, if you look at global index, it's still very, very low. And let's take Malaysia, for example.
Okay.
Malaysia has a rail system that arrives at every 30 minutes. But I went to Hong Kong. The train arrives every 4 minutes.
Okay.
And that rail in Hong Kong carries not less than 2,400 passengers capacity. But here is still road. He who fails to plan for the future is ready to occur continuously fail. So I will answer the question this way. If the government will look at the national budget and knowing fully well that the road transport system is what we all depend upon, majority of us, and cede a percentage to road and rail, so there will be intermodal transportation. With that, I see in the next 30 years.
30?
Yes. In the next 30 years, for us to have interconnectivity that we give choice to the user.
If you are just joining us, this is still a matter of hour. After the break, we move to our audience for their views.
You're welcome back. We've been discussing with the National Executive Director of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, Mr. Francis Ehigwese, and we've been talking about the national transport policy, the role it plays in providing adequate transport infrastructure. And it's time now to take questions and observations from our audience. You're welcome to the program.
First of all, I want to commend Lamata for the transformation in Lagos State. I was born and bred in Lagos State, and it looked like a Herculean task, but looking at it today, it's beautiful and wonderful. And my question is this: Is it based on the fact that the national transport policy is still in the draft level that has made other states in Nigeria not to emulate what Lamata is doing?
I want to say that except Lagos State that understand what national transport policy is, many states didn't even understand it. There was nothing like Ministry of Transport in many of these states. They joined Ministry of Transport, Works, at times even Water Resources. At times to be Ministry of Transport, no, Ministry of Works and Housing, then Transport. So they don't really understand that transport can stand alone as a ministry. So a state that does not even understand what it is, how will they come up with a state transport policy? Awareness is being created. The Federal Ministry of Transport has come up with the National Council on Transport that is held every year, where the states, local government, and the critical stakeholders, of course, are all invited. I think one is coming up in Enugu in September. It is from there I see states and then even local government coming up with suggestions. They come up with memo to that, submit memorandum to that body, and it is considered at that body and taken up at the federal level, and even those that belong to state are ceded to the state to consider. Next year is considered again. So there is this awareness that is being created through that platform, and I encourage the Ministry of Transport, Federal Ministry of Transport, to go ahead with that platform, and state please to key in.
My question is, in view of the loopholes that have been cited in the national transport policy, my question is, what is the National Institute of Transportation and Logistics doing about it, and how can the public, the users, help to facilitate these changes, in enforcing these policies so that we can all have a national pride?
The Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport that I represent have made efforts to ensure that national transport policy is reviewed to meet national yearning and aspiration. You see, the public itself cannot, the question you've just asked, they don't have a role to play as at now. It is the experts that will come together and look at it from the perspective of what a national transport policy should be. And it is after that stage they will send to the public. The public own is to see, it's working, and they are happy. And now the transport policy is not working. I think we are all sad that it's not there. And I believe that the National Council on Transport, in collaboration with all the stakeholders, will bring about a change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Higwese, for this time out with us. We'll be right back after the break.
We serve you best when we know what you're thinking. Let's hear your views on any of the following.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Till we come your way again on Lamata Half Hour. Remember, people will forgive anything provided it doesn't block traffic.
Indeed, anything. In those humorous but wise words of Dan Rather. Lamata.
Take transport. Lagos, my home. With Lamata, Lagos is changing for the best. BRT lanes, modern rail lines, pedestrian